Hundreds of years ago, the Vikings were the seafaring people. Their prowess in battle and in naval ability led to the creation of the term the Viking Age. But what we really want to know is exactly why were the Vikings so successful in this time?
There are several factors to consider, such as shipbuilding techniques, raiding strategies, and even their efficient form of healing demonstrated towards their wounded in and out of battle. Today we will explore Viking ships and weaponry, join them in their raids, and learn how army discipline would trounce their enemies.
It all began with the Viking raids. To be honest, the Vikings had been causing problems beforehand in England. However, we do not actually know when the raids started, as they were dismissed by the English as common raids that could be ignored. However, when the Vikings had made their attack on the monastery on Lindisfarne, this was when the Europeans decided that the Vikings needed to be taken care of. Because this was the first time any adversary had ever dared to attack a holy building. They had never experienced it before, as all the other European adversaries were Christians. So this was so unfamiliar to them that the Vikings had multiple other opportunities afterwards to take advantage of their Christianity. Since the Vikings were unrestrained by the European Christian values, they felt free to attack the churches. This was advantageous for many reasons. Monasteries were treasuries of wealth, which were used in ceremonies. Gold and jewelry could be found in scepters, basins, and crosses. The Vikings would also capture the higher-ranking priests for ransom. During the Viking Age, monasteries also tended to be in remote areas near the coast. There was virtually no defense allocated to these areas, and the priests couldn't defend themselves, unlike the Chinese monks who learned Kung Fu at their temples. So all these factors made them sitting ducks. Favouring quick loots on religious places, they avoided the military and arrived too quickly for their adversaries to organise a defence. After spending years trading with the Europeans, they were well acquainted with their coastal layout and knew where the targets were. The Vikings were a resourceful tribe and cannot be underestimated in their prowess at raiding.
They even utilised warriors called berserkers, the mad fighters who thrived in their belief that Odin was looking after them. As a result, they would come into battle without armour and fought with inhuman ferocity and superhuman strength. They also fought regardless of injuries, as they seemed to not feel pain. We learnt this from the sagas, and Ynglinga's saga stated the following: Odin's men rushed forwards without armour, were as mad as dogs or wolves, bit their shields, and were as strong as bears or wild oxen. They killed people at a blow, and neither fire or iron told upon them. This was called the Berserker Gang. From this quote, it is clear that berserkers were thought of as mad, and also encouraged the belief that the Vikings were evil in the eyes of God. Of course, this state was not sustainable, and after their madness, the Vikings would become helpless with severe exhaustion. This was one of their weaknesses. However, in their peak, they are virtually unstoppable. These Vikings left such an evil reputation that the villagers they attacked would sometimes pay most of their money to avoid the raids. This was sometimes called the Danegeld. But another thing that we certainly wonder about the Vikings is how did they get to their battles? What did they do to improve their technology? There were several things that they did and improved. A notable point was their addition of the keel to their ships. The keel was a small plank of wood attached to the ships that decreased the rolling motion of the ship. This meant several things for their ships. They could land in places they couldn't before, plus they could move faster through the water. By moving faster, they were able to minimise the amount of food that they used and the amount of stops that they had to make on the way to their targets. The keel also improved steering and stabilised the ship. When travelling, they used two main methods of transport through the water. One was using a sail and making use of the ocean winds. The other was used when closer to the shoreline and coasts, which was to row. Around 20 to 30 people in a raiding party would row the boats. The ships were also super thin and amazingly lightweight, and could enter shallow rivers even when fully stocked. This would pose an advantage as it allowed ships to sail up fjords and ransack towns along even these naturally defended towns. When raiding, the Vikings would drop their masts so that their victims would not see the ships coming and form a defence against them. We have evidence supporting this in the form of the Oseberg ship. From the Oseberg ship, we know that there are holes for the oars to fit into. From the Oseberg ship, we also know that the Vikings stored their shields in the side of the ship for them to pick up as they went into battle.
Another reason the Vikings were so successful in the battles and raids was because of the incredible army discipline they displayed. Let's take a look. The Vikings also had a very strong fighting culture. Normans typically began training at the age of 5 or 6 and were expected to become fully developed athletes by the age of 12. Competitions and carnivals were mandatory. Not only did they learn weaponry skills, they also practiced their own martial arts. Despite their apparent ruthlessness, however, the Vikings were a civilized tribe and had rules governing these competitions. For example, killing was frowned upon. This is because killing showed a lack of self-control and showed disrespect towards an opponent. However, such instances did actually occur. For example, the Icelander Egil Skallagrimsson killed an opponent when he was only 7. These occurrences are rare, however. Their leaders were also expected to surpass their subjects both physically and intellectually. The fact that their hierarchy is partly based off physical ability, this demonstrates how earnest they were about their military. This is why the Vikings won prestige during this age. They were a country that had armed and unarmed martial arts in the centre of the culture. So because they were a military country, that was why they noted Britain's vulnerabilities when they traded with their towns, developed such sophisticated naval technology, and this is why their raids and attacks are so fruitful and profitable. It was because they cared.